I'm Mitch Hedlund. I've had the opportunity to co-chair the American Packaging Summit for 2015 in Chicago. And we're here now meeting with Dennis Furniss, is that correct?
That is correct.
VP of Nutrition and Sports Design for PepsiCo. And we haven't had the opportunity to hear the presentation yet, but we do have the opportunity to learn a little bit more and glean more on what you can share with the audience and what is happening with the engaging millennials and maybe adopting.
Yeah, I can fill in a couple of gaps. So I think there's quite some buzz around PepsiCo and a PepsiCo Design currently. We're the first, I think, first American company and definitely the first fast-moving consumer goods or FMCG or CPG company to win the Red Dot Award, which is quite flattering. I'm not going to take credit for that because there are a lot of people there before me. Our organization was started by Mauro Puccini, who worked very closely with Brad Jakeman and Indra Nooyi to really bring the idea of design to PepsiCo. And we're 3 years into that journey.
My goodness.
So it's quite an exciting place to be.
And what does that entail, and what does it mean for the broad consumer base? Is it a different experience on the shelf?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is to bring design to the core. So I think traditionally, we think about design as an output rather than as content. I think if you just think of design as content in an ever-changing world, and that's specifically relevant to a millennial audience, you have to think very differently about how you engage design, and even about how, what are your equities. We tend to think about equities as very static or monolithic or points of continuum, rather than them being content in and of themselves.
So the product sometimes is creativity.
The product is creativity, the brand is creativity.
Right.
It's really inviting people in. Notice I avoid the word consumer. It's inviting people in to enjoy the brand and to take ownership of the brand with you and to really be a co-creator of the holistic, the bigger brand experience.
And are you utilizing social media in order to do that? How's the engagement taking place?
Well, I think that's the challenge. It's the challenge for designers today.
Yeah.
And it's I think probably the most exciting time ever to be a designer. Also the most concerning because you need to have such a big mind to absorb everything that's happening. But it's really just this idea of, I would call it parallel creativity. It's having the ability with your mind to think about the same creative concept, being able to channel it into different avenues. And so that in delivery to the consumer, there's a holistic idea, but it might be moving through packaging, connected to social media, connected to advertising, connected to anything. So it's just a very different mindset that I think you need to develop. And I think I would liken it to the easiest one for me to comprehend would be Virgin. Yeah, Richard Branson's Virgin, right? They're in banking, airlines, insurance, you name it. The equities never change. The equities are consistent, but the application of the equity and the perception of the equity and the value of the equity moves dramatically.
Right.
And I didn't even include Galactic, which has had some problems lately, but it's quite amazing when you think about that as a brand.
Oh, it is. The diversity, but there is definitely a brand identity that is never mistaken.
Exactly.
It's the core all the way through, and packaging is so much more than a 3D experience.
Exactly.
So when you talk about people being engaged on a creative level, avoiding the word consumer, does it almost make creativity for Pepsi become almost open source and collaborative with the
open source is a great. I'm glad you brought that one up because this idea of shareware is really interesting, isn't it? When you think about a brand and what most brands that have come through in the last 10 years have been able to do, they are shareware in and of themselves.
Right.
If we're going to mention Threadless, right? Great Chicago company. Yeah, it's been around a little while now, but that whole point was being able to share, not just share the idea, but share the experience.
Right.
Yeah, share the brand. Yeah, share the profit. Share the love.
Right.
And But you have to, I think you have to embrace, specifically millennials in that way, because that's what they're looking for.
Exactly, and that's what they're accustomed to these days.
Yeah.
I mean, business plans, I think of this so often, must look dramatically different today than they did 20, 25
Absolutely.
years ago. I mean, people are going to investors saying, yeah, there's no revenue here. It's a shared asset.
Yeah.
And investors are saying, and why would we ever, where's your revenue model? And they say, well, it's not there yet, but it's an open source solution.
Yeah.
And that would have been a completely profound and absurd concept 20, 25 years ago, and now there is value to
Absolutely.
that. And I think it's remarkable that legacy brands that have been
Yeah.
around so long are not wanting to be the phone booth. They don't want to be the printout classified ad. They're really recognizing that there's
Absolutely.
a trend that they have to be on the front side of, and
Yep.
it's non-conforming to what
Exactly.
they know.
And I think, the big light bulb obviously is, the craft beer industry.
Right.
Who would have guessed that 20 years ago, right, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that it would be where it is today in the United States of all places, right? I could have believed it for the UK, but if somebody had said to me 5 years ago that the industry would have been so flipped on its head,
Right.
I would never have believed it. But I think, it's once again, I think, lifestyle brands or lifestyle associated products are the key to what's next.
Absolutely.
And so as you look at the remaining parts of the store, you have to ask yourself how long.
Yeah.
So it's but I think you're right. I think it's great. I think it's hugely inspiring as long as you embrace it.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you hug the past, watch out.
Yeah.
Dinosaur.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think also a couple of things. First of all, do you ever see a future for craft sodas? We're talking about craft alcohol, and is there a market for sodas and alternate other beverages, non-alcoholic, to ever have
I can't
a
comment on
place
behalf
in
of
that
PepsiCo
market?
because I don't come from the beverage
Yeah.
area of the business. What I can say is I think there are some things I'm going to share today
Yeah.
that show that that's definitely
A potential.
more than a potential, but a reality.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so another thought on changes in the marketplace, and I don't know how this affects the direct work that you're doing, but there is a change in what's happening in, food service most definitely, but also grocery.
Yeah.
And the perimeter shopping is becoming a big focus, and they're seeing a change in floor pattern even for grocery stores. How does an industry leader like Pepsi react to that when perimeter shopping is becoming the trend? How do they...
I just really think, I think we're doing amazing things, and again, we'll bring some of those to light in the presentation. But I think it's just, understanding the world that we live in and listening to the people who love your brand. I mean, we all talk about brand love, but you have to love your brand.
Absolutely.
And if you listen and you work with and you address real need and real desire, I think it actually creates more opportunity, not less opportunity.
Right.
And I think that conversation is something that we're all embracing. I mean, every day. I don't think there's a day when I go to work where that idea of raising the bar, increasing the opportunity, and taking the brands to bigger and better places is always the conversation, never the opposite. Which is why I do love being at PepsiCo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how long have you been with Pepsi?
So I've just been here a year now, and it's amazing. But so Mauro Pacini, who heads up global design, brought me in as one of 3 category leaders. But we also have a number of other design leaders who've come from amazing companies to kind of drive it. So I'm just one of many. I consider myself one of the disciples.
Very interesting. Well, now I'm absolutely can't wait for the compelling presentation. Do you find with packaging that it's hard to reinvent in a way, working with somewhat of a limited product and confining product, or are there no boundaries?
Yeah, I think anyone that knows me will say, I always come back to the same source point, which what is your iconic value, right? As a brand, what is your iconic core? And what is it that you're trying to amplify? So there's the message, there's the aesthetic, and then there's the vessel, right? And the vessel is both, right? So it is both the aesthetic and the message. And I think that's where you have to think about packaging in a very different way. It was interesting, L'Oreal was on earlier. I mean, it mentioned some amazing brands that really leverage their aesthetic in incredible ways. La Roche-Posay was mentioned. I mean, it's an incredibly understated brand, but you could spot that brand from 100 yards away versus the competitive set.
Yeah.
Same for Kiehl's. It's like, so it's understanding your iconic value that really changes, I think, your perception of what your packaging is.
Yeah.
And your packaging has to be the continuum through which the consumer or people build a bond with your brand.
Right.
And so that for me is fundamental.
When you're talking about the really focusing on millennial audience,
Yep.
not excluding anyone, of course.
Exactly.
But where is sustainability in that? Because millennials are so heightened to the issue.
I think it's absolutely critical, right? What brand? I mean, I guess, my personal experience is that I've been pretty much organic now for about 20 years. I didn't even know I was organic to begin with. It was just, I didn't want anything chemical.
Right.
But I think, it's been the idea of sustainability has been a movement that began way before the buzzword. I think there is now a heightened, not just awareness, but a heightened necessity that we have to address, and we have to reverse some of the issues that have been created. But again, I think it's working. I think it's working with the brand. I agree with everything that was said by L'Oreal. But it's really about working with the brand to understand how you build that connection, and then how you drive that behavior. Because it does come down to behavior in the end.
Right.
We can all produce more sustainable packaging, right? We can do that. But if we can't change behavior, then there's fundamentally an issue.
Right, a disconnect.
Yeah. So it really is about encouraging new behaviors through packaging.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you want to share that just kind of sums up your drive for being innovative in packaging that the audience might be contending with themselves?
I think the one message that I would like to share, I think as designers, as creators of brand experiences, I do think this idea of sustainability is important, but I think even more importantly is thinking about something else that was mentioned today, which is the circular economy. So it's thinking about your brand and your package as a vehicle and how it moves through that circular economy. And it's not simply about finding more sustainable materials, it's creating more sustainable behaviors. And I think it goes from pack to the hand to mindset, right? And it's how do you encourage that thought process when the life of the packaging is done. So.
Right. Okay, well, good.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very, very much. It was very enjoyable.
Thank you. This was such a pleasure. We're looking forward to the presentation.